Oh, good evening. This is L.B. Bork with People's Awareness Coalition. This is the ultimate remedy. That's what I called my show years ago when I was on another station. And I quit after a while because people weren't doing anything. You know, they want to hear people talk, and they really didn't have any ambition to change things. And that's what I set out to do, because when I got in this years ago, or started looking at the movement, people were going to prison for, thinking they had constitutional rights or thinking they didn't have to pay income tax, whatever the case may be. But I investigated myself what was going on, and I found out, because a lot of the information out there in the movement, even 25 years ago, was incorrect. And it's worse than ever with the internet and disinformation agents they put out there. So anyway, I adopted their ultimate remedy back, because it is the ultimate remedy within what we have to deal with in this system. And it's all pursuant to what they've laid out for our remedies. So it's nothing that I've made up. It's all, per their law, and it works. It is real, and it's all included in my book and on the PAC websites. There's, I don't know, I think there's 10 PAC websites, 9 for sure. One's not really put together yet. We might be, if I can get more people interested and assisting with financing and help, we're going to put up a phone site, because everything's converted pretty much to people being on phones lately. But we are America's road home, and that's what we're trying to get people back to, kind of like the Israelites left Egypt. We're doing the same thing. Been doing it for 20 years, and it does work. And unfortunately, people are distracted with the nonsense. With that said, that's basically the foundation of what PAC's about in the show. We're going to be talking about things the next couple weeks anyway. We're here on Tuesdays from, I guess it's, what is it? 6 to 8 Eastern time.
Right.
So, my friend Frank, who's stepped up. We have the Step Up program. Not very few people are stepping up. We need more people to step up, but he's been assisting PAC for about a year now, and I really appreciate the help, Frank. I've been on hiatus for the last.
Well, thank you.
And you picked up the ball and ran with it, and a few other people have too. But I said, I need help with this. This isn't going to get done by myself,
Right.
Because it's a group effort, and we've talked about this before. I claim not to be a leader. I'm not really a leader. I'm a director, educator, and about self-governing. Self-governance rather is about people governing themselves, and that you don't need a leader. You need education and things, how to do that, and that's what PAC's about. So.
Well, we have a group, a core group of individuals that are involved in the PAC Alliance, and several of them are state nationals as well. They've gone through the process, and we get together every couple weeks or so, and we have a conference call. And that call, one of our members said that, because we know this about you, LB, and that, a lot of people are looking for a leader to guide them around, because that's what they've been trained to do all their life.
Right.
They've been trained to follow the leader. And we're not looking for that. We're looking for people. We want people to be self-reliant, because that's what you're going to have to be when you correct your nationality. And the definition of a teacher is somebody that has influenced you in one way or another. And you have done that. You've influenced a lot of people with your research, with your work, and this, the website and the formatting of PAC and the whole idea of that. So much so that there are so many people out there attempting to imitate it. And that's kind of what we were talking about earlier, was about, this coming to light, this material, people getting a hold of it and cherry picking parts of it, and taking it and dissecting it and cannibalizing it and making their own stew of sort to get you to follow them.
Right.
And that boils down to here's a white paper on it that called the Internet Wasteland. The first statement on here is from Thomas Jefferson. He says, "The wise know their weakness too well to assume infallibility, and he who knows most knows best how little he knows." Mm-hmm. Well, that's kind of where our stance is. We don't know it all, no, but we have a basic foundation, and that foundation is rock solid. You don't want to build a house on a crappy foundation. You want to build on a strong foundation. And that's what PAC provides. It provides the educational foundation for the people to free themselves. And with self-determination and self-reliance, it can happen. It can be done. And we don't. It's not. This isn't like a groupie thing, so to speak. But in a way, we need this unity in order to make this work. And that's kind of what we're searching for here is discerning souls who are willing to pick up the ball and do something for themselves rather than counting on other people to do it for them. And see, that's how these, like I said, that greed thing, this is how these people get attracted to them, is because, hey, somebody's going to do it for me. All I have to do is pay X amount a month or pay this X amount, and they're going to do it all for me. Well, PAC isn't that way. PAC certainly has to have money to operate. It needs funds to keep going. But there's a great deal of that is steering you in the right direction and getting you to do the studies yourself. It's a lot of it's self-study, and we also have a pilot program coming up, a pilot educational program that is in the works right now that's to be released after the first of the year. And the people that are going to be in that are the people that are going to show the desire for that, and the people that are willing to sacrifice their time and their skills to make that happen. Kind of off the subject of that, this internet wasteland, it's interesting. I just pulled it up on the break, and, in the early 1990s, George Bush Sr. addressed the United Nations and stated that the New World Order follows the rule of law, not the law of the jungle. You had mentioned about anarchists. Well, that's the rule of the jungle. Anarchy is the rule of the jungle. There are certain things that the government provides that are needed. A lot. With that said, a lot of it that they have is not needed for sure. We all know that, and that's what the part that makes everybody so angry and so displeased with how things are nowadays. But there are certain things, there are certain functions that they're used for, that we need them for, and that's where we need to keep them. That's where they need to be put back into place. But we can't put them into that place because we don't have we don't have the power to do that, because we've yielded our power to them by agreeing to their citizenship status.
Well, things aren't that cut and dry. Back to the anarchy issue.
Right.
The people are so confused about that, and it's like it's just blind. Leading the blind and following blind people. And like I said, I believe Larkin Rose is probably an operative at this point. I always believed he was. I don't even know if he went to prison for sure. That might be a lie. I haven't checked the records. I have a friend that checked to see if this another guy, that President Tim Turner, was in the system, and she couldn't find him in the prison system. So I believe he was an operative. All these operatives are out there to sidetrack the truth, and get people to follow them.
Well,
do whatever.
You go on with this. In this day and age of open communication, the only way the New World Order proponents can keep people ignorant is with internet subterfuge. Right. Operatives get this accomplished nicely. The only way to combat this is with people working together in unity under one umbrella. PAC is that umbrella. I'll give the link for this to the people that are the listeners. You can go to pacandlaw.us/wasteland. That's pacandlaw, PACINLAW.us/wasteland. And you can read this. It's a very good read, and it kind of gives you an idea about what PAC's about. And, because there's so much disinformation on the internet that floats around. And since they can't really do anything to you, if you're doing it lawfully and you're doing it peacefully, there's nothing they can do except to, well, basically make stuff up about it.
Right. Or, by distracting people. That's how they do it.
Right.
And, 90% of what some of these operatives, I call them operatives and opportunists because, I'm tired of trying to discern or take the time to discern or figure out which is which. So as far as I'm concerned, they're all operatives. I don't care if they're not getting paid by the government or not. The Russians used to call them useful idiots because they're doing the same damage as if they were getting paid by the usurpers or the people in control of the status quo. So being divided and spreading disinformation or bad information is no different than getting paid for it. They're doing the damage. So operatives and opportunists, that's another paper I put together. So there's a lot of white papers I've written just to vent and educate people on certain subjects. But the Red Amendment is the crux of my work, and it's in its, I think, 4th printing. I can't even remember anymore. It might be 5th. It's a 2016 edition. It's got a glossary in it. I don't know. People like it. I still can't believe I wrote it in the short period of time I did. Of course, it's evolved into something better than it used to be back in year 2000 when I released the first version. But anyway, I'm kind of blathering right now, but not really. I wanted to say thank you, Revolution Radio, and the crew that got us on the show. I forgot to say that at the top of the hour when we started this maiden show today. So, I really appreciate the opportunity to get on the air again and get this time comped. And we're going to improve this quite a bit. My goal is to get 6 different host on, and we're going to hopefully be on every day. And each show is going to be dedicated to teaching people how to be self-governing and basically like the PAC mission statement, which is almost 20 years old now, states or references that we're here to get the states back and the state sovereignty back so we can operate outside this Illuminati world elite plan of where they're controlling everything. And and if people just started working together and quit doing distracting things that are worthless, like I said last hour, I said if you don't know law, you don't know anything. And you mentioned foundation a minute ago, Frank, and there's a maxim of law that says if the foundation fails, all fails. Well, people are going off grid, and they think they're off grid, but they're being attacked by the authorities and municipalities that have rules and regulations, and that's just going to get worse. All these preppers think they're not going to be seen, but they're missing the most important grid, and that's the law grid. And that's the foundation of everything because these people control things. And anarchy, like we've talked about in the past and today, that's just a go nowhere situation or operative position that they put out there to get people in trouble. And there's 2 points to that. It's one, it's going to possibly get people in trouble that practice it. It's called civil disobedience, which means they're not following the civil law, which is the system as set up as private law. And 2, they're getting people set aside so they don't do anything politically. I'm not talking about voting in the status quo system. I'm talking about politically is how we take things back. So they're getting these people out of the way. And they remain ignorant, and they're doing nothing to help the situation. So that's the 2 prongs. It's one, it's meant to possibly get people in trouble, and 2, to get them out of the way so they can't make change.
Right.
So that's what anarchy is all about. It's planned opposition, or planned operative, or what they call them, inciting agents, or agent provocateurs push that. And that's why I believe Larkin Rose is. Anyone that follows that stuff is just a useful idiot for the New World Order, or, getting paid for it.
And you can tell because it's not very pragmatic.
No.
It's not a pragmatic way of, because there's a lot of folks that'll say, well, we don't need the police. Well, I beg to differ. I really do. Now, we don't need them doing some of the things that are going on now, but I think that that's all part of this.
Well, it's part of the plan, yeah.
It's part of the plan to get people riled up so they'll rebel.
Right.
And since they're already considered belligerents anyway, it just gives them more of a reason to cinch the noose tighter. It's like you said, it gets them out of the way. It gets those people put out of the way so they can't do anything.
Right. It's the divide and conquer tactic.
Right. Divide and conquer. People, we didn't live. None of us were alive 150 years ago. We don't know what went on. We only know what's been written down and what's the history that's been passed on. Well, the victors always write the history.
Right.
So we know that they're going to write it slanted toward their beliefs or what they want you to believe. But you can't always go by that, because simply for the fact that really human nature, come on, we know about it, but people just aren't in certain cultures. They're just it's not. It doesn't seem to me that what they're saying is very objective about how things really were. So we have to look at it. I know in my life they weren't like that. Because I didn't really, of course, I wasn't really like a scholar going through school. I was more of a hands-on kind of guy. So
right. So was I.
But more so now, I'm more into the scholarly type of materials, because I realize now what I had missed out on all those years back. But at the same time, I think I spared myself a lot of nonsense, because if I had been pre-programmed with that, I mean, I see people going to college nowadays and getting degrees and coming out, and they've got the simple jobs. They've just got jobs that they're overqualified for them. They didn't get a job description that they trained for. So they were pre-programmed into believing all this, go to college, get a good job stuff. I'm not saying everybody's like that. I'm just saying there's a majority of them that are that way, that end up selling insurance or something.
Right. My brother's one of them. I have one brother that never went to school, and he's doing okay. He's smarter than most of the people he works with. He worked with me in my business a while back, and he's a good worker. But my other brother, he went to school for chiropractic practice, and he went to he's working for an insurance company.
I worked for a guy when I was in high school, right after I got out of high school, remodeling homes. He never got out of sixth grade. He dropped out of school in sixth grade. And he was a businessman.
Right.
He was making good money, and he couldn't really write. His wife did all the writing for him. He could sign his name, and he could read some. He read pretty good, but his writing skills were atrocious. And he taught me something, because I was always convinced, you got to go to school, you got to get a good education. He says, well, do you think I went to school and got a good education? I said, obviously, you're a successful businessman. He said, well, I'm going to tell you something. I didn't. I dropped out in sixth grade.
Mm-hmm.
And he even got into trouble and did some prison time right after he got out of high school. He's like 18, 19 years old, but he got his life straightened out. And, he had been in business ever since. And he had several businesses prior to that. But it was one of those kind of experiences that I thought, well, that just crushed my belief system. Well, it was a series of those that led me, these choices in my life that led me to the Red Amendment and to PAC, because I had seen a lot of stuff and I knew something was wrong. I just I didn't know, what was it? What exactly was it? And the Red Amendment, I mean, it just in detail tells you what it is, and it tells you how to fix it. So.
Yeah, one of our good friends, John, just asked me to describe or talk about the comparison between capitalism and communism, and I guess I can do that. We can do that after the break here. Or, well, we don't have a break because we don't have a producer, so we're not going to have a break. I guess we could. I was going to say we could do that the last half hour. I can go into that, and it's basically the crux of my work, which no one sees. People today still don't see it. I've had to explain it to them that, they've been told what to think in these schools and whatever, everyone's into this capitalism thing. It's like capitalism was just a boogeyman. Well, Marx created communism, and the boogeyman was capitalism. I mean, once I started looking at these things, it was clear as day what that son of a bitch was doing. It was a grand plan to create. I don't know. My thoughts aren't too wired to this right now, but it was a grand plan to develop commerce. And so that's the bottom line. It was a plan to develop commerce to consolidate the wealth in the hands of a few elite people. That's what it was. That was Communist Manifesto. That's the purpose of it. It was to consolidate the wealth of people and take away from the middle class because they were a problem of being landowners, creating their own businesses, and they were a thorn in the side because of the numbers of people that could do that or would have been doing that through the centuries. It was a problem with the elite. So to balance things out, Marx, created this class war of the so-called workers, which were the poor people, the proletariat and the bourgeois, the war against the two, to create this strife so the elite could pick up the pieces. And that's one thing when I noticed when I read the Communist Manifesto, I go, wait, the middle class is okay or not okay. It's a bad thing, but the ruling class, the elites, are okay. That was a big red flag, pun intended always when I say red flag, of what this whole thing was about. And like I've been telling people for years, that there was no capitalism before Noah Webster defined it, and I think it was like 1817 or something like that. And Marx ran with it, and he made it the boogeyman. And people think because you have capital, you're a capitalist. That's not the way it worked. Noah Webster said it was elite people with a lot of capital was capitalism back then. If you go back and read about what he said about it in the older generic dictionaries. So there was no such thing as capitalism. Just because someone had capital to invest in a business doesn't mean they're a capitalist. And it's been all twisted around by the communist or the Marxist and all these people like libertarians. They're all useful idiots of the whole system. Everyone's a useful idiot of this system. I was talking to one of our people, Nathan, in Ohio today, and he goes, every time he says, tells people Americans are communists, he gets these dirty looks, and they tell him he's stupid and whatever. Of course,
I know.
My book proves it. I mean, it's a no-brainer once you start reading my book, what's going on or what's transpired. But, like I said, if you're paying income tax, that didn't exist until Marx invented it. So if you're paying income tax, that's a Marxist doctrine out of the Communist Manifesto. I don't pay it. I'm not going to pay it. It's the most evil tax there is. I've explained to people, you have these widgets, which is something that indescriptive in manufacturing. Everyone that touches a widget is getting taxed on it. And it's deplorable, the people that are getting ripped off. And one thing I noticed how these capitalist types work is they're always looking for ways to put off their operating expenses on the population they sell things to. And that's income tax is exactly that. And they're talking about, a tax reform right now. And The only people that are going to benefit with these reforms are the elite. They're going to keep raping the workers. And of course, Marx said, well, it's to help the workers, but that's a bunch of BS. It was always made to rape the workers and make them pay the operating expenses of the people they're working for. And that's the income tax. I mean, right. if you manufacture, Frank,
right?
Every widget, like I said, let's say it's just something that's takes wood to create. Let's use wood, 2x4 for a house, maybe. That's the widget in this case. That's a natural resource. They get the wood from the earth. Okay, everyone from the guy that cuts down that tree to the guy that delivers that to your house, which they build the house of, everyone that touches that widget, 2x4, is paying tax on it.
That's right.
That's ridiculous. Thousands of people technically or theoretically could be paying tax on that thing.
Right.
And you don't see it because they're paying their income tax on it. The lawful tax under the international law that's been that the New World Order doesn't like is import and export taxes. One, they don't want to pay those because they can't go into an area and sell their merchandise and be greedy and have all this business. So they had to find a way, which the Communist Manifesto does through the income tax, to make every individual make up that taxation some other way. And they've also done it, which was built into the Constitution. I explain it in my book, Communism Before Communism. They do it through property taxes, too. That stupid Alexander Hamilton, the Jew that worked for the bankers, he said, what's the best way to keep your property taxes down? And that's a feudal tax. It was a type tax. It was, it's old taxation from the feudal systems of Europe, where they would tax people's property. They wouldn't even own it, but they had to pay taxes on it nonetheless. And that's what they've done here. So that's how they alleviated early on, not just the income tax, but they would tax people's property instead of the states getting their revenues from import-export taxation. So that was one of the ways where they started to pawn off the capitalist types, these elites that did interstate commerce, which is state to state, or country to country, as people think it is today, but each state's a country. Anyway, people don't understand that because they don't understand law. But that's how they've pawned off their operating expenses so they can line their pockets more. Even the guy that wrote Bastiat, he was a rich elitist that was interested. His family was involved in I don't know if they manufactured, but they were merchants. So he didn't like the import-export taxation because it ate into their profits and being able to, sell over state lines or out of country. So that's why he wrote that. He didn't like socialism, which he's an idiot. I wrote a paper on him too, because he was against socialism. But that's one of the keys of Marxism, the redistribution of wealth. So, the poor people could also have money. So the capitalist types could sell more products to more people. That's part of, if you study Marxism and the redistribution of wealth and things like that, that's one of the main reasons they'd done that, so the poor people could buy things from these rich merchants or capitalists. And
we see that.
I don't think he understood that. That's what the paper was about. The guys that engineered all this totally understand what they've done, and that's what it's all about. It's about mercantilism and selling stuff over state lines, and that's why there's no jobs in America anymore because of this New World Order system, which is world communism.
That's what I was going to say. That's why there's this NAFTA, and you can see in the quality of products has diminished so far in the eyes of profit, because it's no more of let's build something that lasts forever. Let's build something so that you got to buy a new one every year.
Right. Well, that's planned obsolescence.
Right.
I've got stories on that. Americans used to be prideful in producing something that would last a long time. And there used to be, I read somewhere at one time, there used to be over 800 tractor manufacturers in the Midwest in America or United States. And now there's only 4, and little of these things are even built here anymore for companies or corporations.
Or if they are, they'll say made in America, but they're all made with foreign parts.
Right. Assembled here.
They're basically assembled here. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, these people that say, like my friend Nathan or PAC member Nathan, that he's crazy. Well, you people are, I guess, don't know about truth and facts. You buy into lies because, like I said, you're paying income tax. That's out of the Communist Manifesto. So, you better stop listening to whoever you're listening to because they've been lying to you. Totally. I mean, you've been conned. There's no doubt in my mind. Like I said, if I think I mentioned it last hour, China, if they're so communist, how come they're producing so much? It looks like they're capitalists to me.
Right.
So like I said, that's what my book and what I discovered. No one talked about it really. Not even G. Edward Griffin. About the Communist Manifesto being a blueprint for the consolidation of wealth into the hands of a few elite. And that's exactly what's transpired. And that's what's going on. In America, the United States, through the Illuminati, this whole, Jewish plot to rule the world is they use the United States as a boilerplate. You tell my friend here, you don't like what's going on and you think other countries are good. Well, this is the boilerplate for what's going to transpire throughout the world. This was the beginning of it. And if people don't put an end to it, it's going to get worse and worse. And then we see it getting worse and worse. The only way to keep this taxation is theft nonsense. That's bullshit too. Yeah, income taxation is theft, like I just described. But the only way to properly keep, corporations in tow is tax the hell out of them, and import and export taxation. To keep your labors local, and keep these corporations in check. That's the taxation that needs to be addressed.
But they've eliminated that, haven't they?
Yeah, they pretty much eliminated it because of what I said.
Right. And so for the listeners on the call, you had mentioned that you don't pay taxes and you haven't for 25 years, income taxes.
Income tax.
And how is that? Because what you've done.
I'm not in the system anymore. I'm out of the system, and I've done it. It's lawful. You
lawfully corrected your nationality.
Right. Which is part of the Communist Manifesto. That's one of the things I noticed. Marx said in there, we're going to do away with countries and nationalities. And that's what no one talks about. I brought up the nationality issue. In my book 20 years ago, no one was talking about that. And not that I made this up. I just did the study on it and looked at it. And I go, well, they got all these dumb Americans or stupid Americans calling the United States a country. And anyone, you ask them about their nationality, they think they're German or something. I go, that's not, as a matter of law, that's not what nationality means. And they don't know their nationalities of the state they live in. Or, theoretically, it's the state, and that's their country. So what have they done? They lied to people. And It's communism. They said they're going to do away with countries and nationalities in the Communist Manifesto. No one knows their country. They think it's the United States, but that's a lie. It's wrong.
Right.
And they think their nationality is they're German or whatever. That's wrong.
Right.
So what have they done? You know, you got 1 + 1 is 2. It's no brainer. You've been Marxized, and they don't even know it.
Right.
They did away with 50 countries and nationalities with the 14th Amendment system. People don't know who they are. So
and it's all done by fraud.
It's deception and fraud and lies.
Right.
And that's, you know, and speaking of that, no one talks about what I just talked about. So everyone that's stolen my material for the most part doesn't talk about this. So that means they're operatives. Anyone that's taken parts of my material, they've left out that most important part. Like I say, to tell people, you know, as you know, you can tell a lot of truth, but you just leave out the most important parts. If a moron should be able to understand what I just said. So if they talked about that, the cat's out of the bag. That proves that this system is Marxist, and that's the blueprint. And this whole capitalist thing is a bunch of nonsense. It's the blueprint to consolidate wealth. That's it.
Yeah, it's about money and control.
It's about control and money and greed, like you've been saying. So
it's about
that's greed. It in a nutshell. That's now that you know what the deal is. You know, yeah, my book goes into details and all the papers I've written, but what are you going to do about it?
Right.
Like I said, you know, another example I like to use went around when Obama was in office a few years ago. He said something to the effect, "Oh, that business you built, you didn't build that. The government did." You know, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but that's true. This whole system is the Industrial Revolution, as far as I'm concerned, was orchestrated by these people. They had to put these people, all the people, to work. The useless eaters, as they call us, to work so they could make money off them.
Human resource.
Yeah, human resources and consumers, so they could make money off us.
Well, they used to call that personnel department.
Well,
in businesses, they would call it the personnel department.
It's part of the progressive, you know, the liberals. You call them liberals, progressives. You know, all these isms are under Marxism because it is all Marxism or communism. And the blueprint, like I said, is a manifesto. Well,
and the reason that people don't know, again, they were raised in that box. They've never been on the other side of that box. The walls of the box are an illusion, so they don't ever, you know, they can't see the forest for the trees, and so they don't realize it's the slow cook froggy principle.
That was the point I was trying to bring up here. Americans' whole existence. It was kind of referenced in The Matrix, the movie The Matrix. They describe people being bored in this pod as a human resource or a battery, and that whole movie is New Age programming too. It had it had some good points in it, but it is really more propaganda for the New World Order, which I took. A year after that movie was released, I wrote PAC Deprogramming, which has been on the internet for 18 years, and I turned that around back to God instead of the propaganda that some of it looked good, sounded good, especially the first movie, but I turned it around to where it should be and did PAC Deprogramming sequence, and that used to get a lot of traffic, or for lack of better words, that's a commercial term, but it used to get a lot of visitors. But now it doesn't get much, attention anymore because everyone's stolen the PAC material and manipulated it and perverted it. And, they're distracting people with their narcissism. They got their own free radio shows, free YouTube And most of these people haven't done the research. They just cherry picked what they like from the internet and talk about that, or they're an operative. And like I said, they talk about the least important parts and talk about the nonsense and twist that around. Like I said, no one has picked up that each state's a country, and that's right out of Bovier's Law Dictionary. It's international law. It's constitutional law. And there's no way around that. Each state is a country. That's the fact. That's premised on international law. It's nothing I made up. I reference all this stuff, and it's there, but no one follows that. Like I said.
Well, they got to brush it under the rug because they don't want you to know about that.
Right? Like I said, yeah. If it's elementary. If you start talking about that, their whole scam is destroyed.
Right.
You can prove just by that little fact of law, or it would destroy them. Yeah, so if everyone was talking about this, that's why I say that everyone out there is an operative, because they don't talk about that. They don't talk about the thing that would destroy it.
Right.
They talk about nonsense, or
they maintain.
Let's find your points.
Right. They're maintaining the system by doing that. They don't want you to know about this. That's why they leave state nationals alone, because otherwise it could blow up into an international incident and it blow the lid off the whole thing.
Right.
And then everybody would wonder why. Well, how come I'm like I want to do that? And they don't want that kind of attention brought to it. So that's why they hush it and dismiss it or whatever. Yeah, okay, just go about your business. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, so to speak. That was another movie that was had a lot of programming in it. I tend to believe that all movies have a certain amount of programming in them.
Sure. I watch them just to pick it out anymore.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is I do too. Whenever I watch a movie, I start picking things. I start seeing things, even movies I've seen before. I see them again, and I'm like, oh, I see that. That's a message right there. They're telling you something right there. And you mentioned the deprogramming sequence. I put that for the listeners that are listening right now. If you're on the chat, I put the link to that in the chat box, so you can bookmark that for later. It takes about an hour.
Hour and a half.
Yeah, something like an hour and a half. But it's a very good. I've done it a couple of times, and it's not only is it enjoyable, but it's a learning experience, and everything's backed up. Again, everything's referenced with footnotes, and it's all backed up in law. So it's not it's not just a show. It's a learning experience, and I think
it's interactive. The original version, like I wrote that script almost 20 years ago, and it hasn't really changed, but the site itself changed, and it's kind of interactive now, and it's kind of like entertaining too, and it's interactive, and it's an education, like you said.
Right, and I mean, if you got a group of people, you can sit there, and you can go through it. If you got a big screen, big monitor or whatever, I would say that I would recommend, if you want to learn more, that's another place to learn. And that's what PAC's about. It's about education. It's about learning. But the thing is that you have to seek it. You've got to read it. You've actually got to pick it up, or you've got to go onto that website, and you've got to do the legwork. Because we can't do it for you. I mean, we can say here it is, and all you have to do is just read it. But you've got to be the one that does that. So, I also wanted to mention that we have one of our state nationals in the chat box on the Revolution Radio chat room on the website, on the station's website, and he's been helping out. Danny, he's been helping out quite a bit in there. We've got some few people that want some questions answered, and I don't believe we're taking any calls today. We may in the future on one of these calls in the second hour. But for now, we're diverting everybody to the introductory call. It's a little bit less of a hectic format, and there's a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. And so I invite everybody, all the listeners that are listening now, if they want to learn more and they want to learn more about what PAC's about, what we do, I recommend you listen to that introductory call. Before the call is over here, before the show is over, I will give out the phone number again and the referenced link for that if you want to get on it while you're with your computer. But like I said, we've only have 25 slots open for the computer. So if you got to log on, you better log on early, log on about 5 minutes early so you can get a spot. Otherwise you have to call the phone number, which I'll give out. Well, I'll give it out right now. If you've got a pen handy, the number for the introductory call is 218-339-7800. 218-339-7800. The access code is 123-1335. 123-1335. And the computer link is hello.freeconference.com/call/123-1335. And that will be starting here in about 10 minutes after this call, after we end this call. And I just wanted to
end the show.
End the show.
Start the call.
I said, yeah, start the call. Thank you, LB. I'm getting them confused there.
I get confused too. So.
But I just wanted to thank the Revolution Radio and the crew here for having us on, giving us the slot to giving us an opportunity to share in the materials that we have and the opportunity. And I wanted to thank everybody in the PAC Alliance for their help and for helping out with PAC, and for the guys that have been in the chat box and in the Core Call group chat box as well on Facebook. I want to thank all you guys for all your efforts. You guys are doing a knockout job. I want to thank the listeners for listening in and learning more, and I want to invite everybody to the conference call. The PAC website, the main PAC website is, I can give you the PAC website for the it is the portal sitemap, which contains I'm trying to link it up here.
Yeah, there's, like I said, I believe there's 9 websites. Each one handles a different
there's
area. We got Island Makers. Well,
let me read them.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a People's Awareness Coalition, the PAC Alliance, PAC Educational Groups, Not My Government, Island Makers Project, PAC Deprogramming, the Nationalist Party, the Red Amendment, State National Society, and that website to all those links is PAC Alliance, PACALLIANCE.US/sitemap. And that'll put you in touch with all of our links that you can go to and cruise those and surf those sites out. And just so you know, there's probably 125 other pages, white paper pages, that are linked into these websites. Some of them are 1 or 2 pages, and some of them are PDF books. And they're just, you've got to search for them. You've got to look for them. You got to click on the link, and it'll take you there. And those are all tied into the materials written in the Red Amendment. Everything ties together. So it sort of clarifies certain sections. But these are learning tools, and these are what we share with others. It helps them in their understanding of what PAC is about and what the problems that we face, like we've been talking about, like LB has been talking about on this call, on this show tonight.
Just to clarify, PAC is People's Awareness Coalition. when I formed that, it was to be people that corrected their nationality and joined us and all worked together. But after a while, I was finding people didn't want to do it because, they're natural born human resources and they're the source for the communism and they're afraid to leave the system. So I had to do something to allow people that didn't want to correct their nationalities to be part of an alliance. So it's the state nationals of the coalition working in alliance with people that aren't quite ready to correct their nationality or join us in unity in respect to being lawful in their status.
You will now enter the
part of the Marxist system.
Well, and two, there's a lot that are in the alliance that are working towards that.
Right. Yeah.
That are working towards status correction. There's already been a handful that just so far this year that have been working with PAC for several years that have corrected their nationality, and they're still with PAC.
Right.
And it's sort of it's a boost for us that are in the PAC alliance to see this actually develop over time and in real time and actually see it happening in their lives. So several of those folks, those state nationals, come on through the introductory call too as well, and they're there to comment and answer questions as well. So, and of course, you're a state national LB. You've been one for 25 years or so. And
well, I didn't know it when I started this, but yeah, my research. I didn't really correct my nationality until 98, I believe it was.
Right.
So that's when I formed PAC.
Right.
It was founded in 1998. We've been around longer than anyone else generally out there in this movement. And we're getting ignored because of disinformation and distractors. Like the people that like to talk about the conspiracies all the time and don't really offer any remedies.
Right.
Anyway, we're done. Thanks for joining us. We're done. Thanks for joining us. We'll be here on Tuesdays. What was it? 6 to 8. 6 to 8.
6 to 8 Eastern time. You'll have to figure out your own time for your time zone, but we gonna say God bless everybody. Thanks for being on the call.
Listening in.
There you go.
See you next Tuesday, guys.
See you next Tuesday.